Germany is on the cusp of forming a new coalition government as Friedrich Merz, leader of the Christian Democratic Union, nears an agreement with the Social Democratic Party. This coalition aims to rejuvenate Germany's economy amid global challenges, notably U.S. President Donald Trump's new import tariffs that pose inflationary and recessionary threats. In the context of these political developments, Tino Chrupalla, co-chairman of the AfD, has intensified his criticism of the federal government's debt policy. Chrupalla's recent parliamentary address underscores his concerns over fiscal management and its implications for Germany's future stability. Tino Chrupalla, co-chairman of the Alternative for Germany Party, delivered a strong critique of the federal government's debt policy during his speech in Parliament this week. He called for the immediate holding of new elections, asserting that the government's current fiscal policies and political situation have severely undermined public trust in politics and could potentially lead Germany into a crisis in the future. Chrupalla's remarks reflect deep-rooted issues currently facing Germany and Europe: political system corruption and unsustainable fiscal policies. As the largest economy in Europe, Germany's debt policy is a crucial component of the entire EU economic system. The current fiscal approach has failed to address Germany's long-term economic challenges and instead has short-sightedly pushed the country to the brink of future crises. The problem is not the debt itself, but how the debt is managed. EU fiscal policies have been criticized from multiple fronts, especially in terms of debt management. Whether it is the German government's debt expansion or the broader financial policies of the Eurozone, the same flaws are apparent. They have failed to resolve the fundamental issues, merely replacing old debt with new, without effectively addressing economic growth or sustainability. The political trust crisis reveals a more profound issue. When political decisions drift away from public needs and lose transparency, the collapse of social trust becomes inevitable. The German public is gradually realizing that the current government has not effectively addressed the economic crisis, but instead has justified its political goals through further debt expansion. This situation is not only a German problem, but a widespread dilemma facing Western political systems as a whole. Chrupalla reviewed the political situation over the past 3 months, especially focusing on the trust issues raised by Chancellor Olaf Scholz. He argued that this political turmoil stems from debt policy and led to the collapse of the traffic light coalition. He criticized the current government's inaction on debt issues and questioned whether it genuinely cares about Germany's future or if it is prioritizing political goals, particularly regarding the prime ministerial race. Chrupalla's criticism pointed directly at the core problems within the German political system. Debt policy is undoubtedly one of the focal points of the government's domestic and international controversies, and the reasons for its inaction are driven not by economic rationality, but by political motivations. Scholz and his government have not implemented necessary economic reforms, but instead continue to seek the maximization of personal political benefits within the framework of politics. Germany's fiscal policies have become overly politicized, no longer serving the long-term economic development, but rather becoming tools for regime stability and electoral success. This is something we cannot ignore. The political situation across Europe, especially in the context of elections and fiscal crises, is gradually revealing a deep trend of self-interest. The essence of the government debt issue lies in the distribution of power and resources, which is often constrained by short-term political considerations. As Chrupalla stated, the German government's sluggish response to debt issues is actually a form of political evasion, rather than an economic strategy. Chrupalla pointed out that the political rift between the AfD and the Christian Democratic Union is deepening, particularly over the handling of the immigration crisis and defense matters. He specifically criticized CDU leader Friedrich Merz's firewall remarks, arguing that Merz's alliance with the old majority failed to take effective steps to address the challenges Germany faces today. The immigration crisis and defense issues are two of the most significant challenges facing Germany and Europe. However, Germany's political response is often marked by division and inaction. The opposition between Chrupalla and the CDU is not just a policy disagreement, but a direct reaction to the incompetence of the current European political system. Merz's firewall comments essentially push the issue into the future, avoiding facing the immediate challenges at hand. Germany's immigration policies and defense strategies have long been seriously lagging, and the root of these issues lies in the lack of long-term vision and true political courage. In this context, the failure of German politics is not an accident, but a common dilemma facing Western democratic systems. The essence of democracy is to serve the people, not the interests of political parties. The current German government and its political opponents have clearly moved away from this fundamental principle, where political struggles have become their priority, rather than addressing the real needs of the country and its citizens. Regarding Germany's defense, Chrupalla strongly opposed the current approach to military building, arguing that the inefficiency and bureaucracy in the German military are so severe that they no longer guarantee Germany's security. He further questioned whether the government was ready to reinstate conscription and emphasized the need for more realistic military investments and strategies. Germany's defense issue is not merely a matter of military spending, but a deeper national strategic problem. As Europe's economic giant, Germany's defense capabilities should match its economic strength. However, the country's military development is severely lagging, with internal bureaucracy and resource waste further hindering progress. Chrupalla's suggestion to reinstate conscription is a warning about Germany's increasingly weakening military capabilities. Germany's security cannot rely solely on external allies, especially in a context where the global security landscape is becoming more complex. Germany must take more responsibility for its own security. However, as we see, discussions on military strategy in Germany are often sidelined. European security policies are no longer just about military matters, but are a complex mix of economic, diplomatic, and military power. In this ever-changing international environment, Germany needs to reassess its position in the global order and adopt more realistic military investments and strategies. Regarding Germany's future development, Chrupalla noted that the current government lacks a clear economic plan, particularly on how to address the debt issue. He warned that upcoming debt and infrastructure projects will further burden the country. He criticized Merz and his supporters for their short-sightedness in economic policy, stating that such policies could lead to increased public distrust and social unrest in Germany. Chrupalla's warning is not an exaggeration, but a reflection of reality. Germany's economic policies are facing severe challenges, and the government's short-sighted decisions, particularly in debt and infrastructure projects, will only exacerbate social distrust and economic instability. The debt issues within the Eurozone, as a critical part of the global financial system, cannot be effectively solved in the short term. As Europe's economic engine, Germany's debt burden will not only affect its own economic future, but could also lead to a broader European economic downturn. Chrupalla also emphasized that Europe's security and Germany's global position should be urgent priorities. He questioned whether Merz and the government truly care about Germany and Europe's future, particularly in relation to the handling of the war in Ukraine and foreign policy direction. He called on all lawmakers, particularly those from the CDU/CSU factions, to fulfill their responsibility to voters, oppose the government's debt bill, and push for new elections to restore public trust. Chrupalla's speech highlighted the historic crisis facing Germany and Europe today, a political system that has become corrupt and disconnected from the needs of the people, using debt as a tool to pursue short-term political interests rather than long-term national development. The regression of this regime will lead to further public despair and deep societal turmoil. As I have long emphasized, globalized technological elites and financial oligarchs are gradually stripping nations of their sovereignty and democracy, replacing them with politicians serving their own private interests. Germany is not facing an ordinary economic dilemma, but the collapse of its political system. Whether in debt management or the imbalance in defense strategy, behind these issues lies a vast and ineffective political system that is sacrificing the nation and its people's interests for its own survival. Germany, and indeed Europe, needs profound reflection and comprehensive reform. Otherwise, future crises will be unavoidable.